This is the VOA Special English Health Report. Uganda's latest outbreak of Ebola virus is the fourth in recent years. About 200 people died in the biggest outbreak in 2000. 37 people died in the last outbreak in 2007. Ebola is a hemorrhagic fever. It can lead to bleeding inside and outside the body. Symptoms of the disease include high fever, vomiting, and sometimes diarrhea. Other signs include weakness, muscle pain, headache, and sore throat. Ebola spreads through contact with blood or other body fluids of infected people. The virus is often deadly. There is no cure and no vaccine to prevent the disease. In July, President Yoweri Museveni urged Ugandans to report all suspected cases of Ebola. He also urged people to limit their physical contact, even shaking hands. Yoweri Museveni said, "We discourage the shaking of hands because that can cause contact through sweat, which can cause problems. And when people are sick in hospitals with symptoms which look like Ebola, they should be handled by medical workers wearing protective gear." President Museveni also warned people to let medical workers bury suspected Ebola victims. He said, "Please do not take on the job of burying him or her. Call the medical workers to be the ones to do it, because they are the ones who can do it safely." Most of the cases in the latest outbreak have been reported in western Uganda. A World Health Organization official said the first cases in July were mistaken for cholera. But Dennis Luwamafa from Uganda's Ministry of Health says Uganda has improved its ability to identify cases of Ebola. He said Uganda is probably in the lead when it comes to dealing with hemorrhagic fevers in Africa. He said the diagnosis of the Ebola virus outbreak was done in Uganda. Dennis Luwamafa said although the disease is also found in nearby countries, outbreaks are not always identified. He said, in other countries, especially in some of the neighboring countries, many times Ebola goes unrecognized, and other times it goes unreported. He said in some neighboring countries, Ebola destroys whole villages. He said it then disappears because there is nobody left to infect. Ebola fever is named after a river near the first recognized outbreak. That was in 1976 in Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo. To read, listen, and learn English, go to voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find our captioned videos at the VOA Learning English channel on YouTube. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Street children in Ethiopia say their biggest need is shelter. But a study shows that local non-governmental organizations and community groups rarely offer what the street children want. The international aid group Save the Children did the study. One of the researchers says the limited services provided by local NGOs do not match what the children see as their greatest needs. Save the Children talked with children living on the streets in 5 major cities, 3 regional towns, and 8 rural villages. The children discussed many subjects, including their needs, their health, and the risks they face. There are about 30,000 street children in Ethiopia. About 17,000 of them live in the capital, Addis Ababa. More than half of the children do not have access to shelter or enough food. They survive mostly on what they receive from shining shoes, selling small items to passers-by, and appealing to strangers for help. The street children face health threats. Research shows that about 30% are seriously sick, but most do not have any kind of treatment available. About 40% of the children may have been forced to have sex. The children believe that having shelter will reduce these kinds of risks. The child assistance group Goal Ethiopia used to provide shelter for street children, but it found that this discouraged the children from re-entering their own communities. The Ethiopian government is finishing work on a national social protection strategy. It will include new ways of providing support to families to reduce poverty and keep children off the streets. For VOA Learning English, I'm Mario Ritter.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report. Some people say eating hot chili peppers can help you breathe easier if you have a cold. Others believe that chilies give you more energy. All we know is that people have been growing chilies for centuries. And there are plenty of different kinds of chili peppers to choose from. Want to spice up your meals with homegrown chilies? They need a warm climate. If you plant the seeds outside when the weather is cool, place a glass over them. That will add warmth from the sun and protect them from wind. You can also start the seeds in your home or a greenhouse. If you plant chili peppers inside, fill an 8-centimeter pot with soil. The pot should have holes on the bottom so water can run out. Drop seeds over the surface of the container and cover with a thin layer of vermiculite. Vermiculite is a material that can hold air, water, and nutrients. Then cover the top of the pot with a see-through plastic bag. Hold the bag in place with a rubber band. Place the pot in a warm area. You should take off the bag when the chilies start growing. When the plants have reached about 2 centimeters high, place each one in its own pot. When the roots show through the holes on the bottom of the pot, transplant each seedling into a 12-centimeter pot. When the plants are 20 centimeters high, tie the plants to a stick placed in the pot to support them. When the chili peppers are 30 centimeters high, pull off the tops with your fingers. That should get new branches to grow. When the first flowers show, give the plants some potash fertilizer. When the weather is warm, Put them into 5-liter pots and place them outside. Make sure they get lots of light and water. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Name a website where you could find old pictures of camels carrying people to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and books about ancient Aztecs in Mexico. It is all found in the World Digital Library. Its collection is available on the internet. The library has 8,000 items, from whole books to ancient writings to music and photographs. There are 170 partners in 79 countries sending material to the World Digital Library. Partners include national or university libraries, museums, and other cultural organizations. The librarian of the United States Congress, James Billington, launched the WDL in 2009. John Van Oudenaren is the director of the library. He says Mr. Billington wanted it to include materials that are both interesting and important. Every item is explained in the 6 official languages of the United Nations: English, Arabic, French, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, and also Portuguese. Since 2009, 25 million people have visited the website from 250 places. The greatest number is from Spanish-speaking countries. John Van Oudenaren says users include schools, researchers, and anyone interested. He was especially happy to hear from one teacher in New York City. She said it was wonderful to have a website where people around the world could find interesting and important items. Musa Marawe is a researcher for the WDL from Sudan. He works with all the materials that are in Arabic. Musa Marawe believes the library provides tools for understanding, especially among Arabs, Muslims, and the United States. Anyone may search the World Digital Library by subject, time period, kind of document, or area of the world. The website is www.wdl.org. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Name a website where you could find old pictures of camels carrying people to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and books about ancient Aztecs in Mexico. It is all found in the World Digital Library. Its collection is available on the internet. The library has 8,000 items, from whole books to ancient writings to music and photographs. There are 170 partners in 79 countries sending material to the World Digital Library. Partners include national or university libraries, museums, and other cultural organizations. The librarian of the United States Congress, James Billington, launched the WDL in 2009. John Van Oudenaren is the director of the library. He says Mr. Billington wanted it to include materials that are both interesting and important. Every item is explained in the 6 official languages of the United Nations: English, Arabic, French, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, and also Portuguese. Since 2009, 25 million people have visited the website from 250 places. The greatest number is from Spanish-speaking countries. John Van Oudenaren says users include schools, researchers, and anyone interested. He was especially happy to hear from one teacher in New York City. She said it was wonderful to have a website where people around the world could find interesting and important items. Musa Marawe is a researcher for the WDL from Sudan. He works with all the materials that are in Arabic. Musa Marawe believes the library provides tools for understanding, especially among Arabs, Muslims, and the United States. Anyone may search the World Digital Library by subject, time period, kind of document, or area of the world. The website is www.wdl.org. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. The chief executive who presented the latest and coolest electronics to the world has stepped down. Steve Jobs announced his resignation as head of Apple in a letter. He wrote, "I have always said if there ever came a day when I could no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple's CEO, I would be the first to let you know. Unfortunately, that day has come." Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started Apple Computer in 1976. The company sold a new kind of electronic device, the personal computer. Apple Computer grew more quickly than anyone could have imagined. In 1985, however, Steve Jobs resigned after disputes with managers who had been brought in to direct business operations. He soon started his own software company, Next, and bought a computer animation studio. The Pixar movie studio would go on to create movies like Toy Story and Finding Nemo. They are 2 of the most successful animated films ever made. Apple struggled during the 1990s. Many products failed. The company began losing money and its stock price sank. In 1997, Apple bought Next and brought back Steve Jobs. Apple used software developed at Next to create the Mac OS computer operating system. The next year, Apple became profitable, and a series of highly successful products followed. In 2001, Apple released the iPod, a digital music player. The iPhone arrived in 2007. Apple has also been a leader in online marketing. The iTunes Music Store sells songs for download. The App Store sells applications for computers and mobile devices. Steve Jobs is closely linked with the success of Apple. Investors were scared when he announced he had an operation for pancreatic cancer in 2004. His decision to leave comes as Apple continues to release winning products. Apple sold over 4.5 million iPads in the first 3 months of this year. The company holds the largest share of the growing tablet computer market. On August 9th, Apple first passed ExxonMobil Corporation to become the most valuable publicly traded company in the world. Since then, the two companies have traded the lead. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can learn English and stay informed every day from your computer or mobile device at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and iTunes at VOA Learning English.
Hi, I'm Avi Arditi from VOA Learning English. Nouns are names of things like people, places, and ideas, but not all nouns act the same in English. In fact, some nouns can be a little tricky to learn. Jane Mars from learnersdictionary.com is here to explain. Hi, Jane.
Hey, Avi. So yes, today I'd like to talk about a particular kind of noun that many learners find difficult. This noun type causes people to make mistakes. We're going to start just by looking at a list of 6 nouns. And I'm going to ask Avi if he could read them out loud, and those of you who are watching, see if you can figure out which one of these nouns is different from all of the others.
Okay, so the list...
Avi, go for it.
Okay, we've got architects, classes, libraries, mice, laws, and equipment.
Okay, so the question is, which one of these nouns is different from all of the others? And you might have noticed that all of these nouns, except for one, are plural. So let's take a look at them and see if we can figure out which one isn't plural.
Okay.
Architects, it's got an S at the end, definitely plural. Classes, it has an ES at the end, definitely plural. Libraries, got that S, plural. What about mice? No S at the end, but it's plural because mice is an irregular plural. The singular is mouse, and instead of adding an S or ES at the end, you change the letters inside the word to make it plural, but it is plural. Laws is a very regular word. It takes an S to make it plural. What about equipment? Equipment is not plural. So, Avi, could you make equipment plural for us?
Well, let's see. I guess I would say if I were talking about more than one piece of equipment, I would have to say 3 pieces of equipment or all of the equipment, right?
Can you say equipments?
Equipments? No.
No, you can't. Okay, so equipment is what we call a non-count noun, and it can never be plural. And it's these non-count nouns that often give learners trouble because they act a little bit differently than the other kind of nouns, which are count nouns. Count nouns are very regular. Non-count nouns are a little bit different. So what's different about non-count nouns? And Avi, if you could work on bringing up the next slide, we can take a look.
All right, there we go.
Avi's working on that. So the first thing we know.
Okay, the slide is up.
Thank you. Non-count nouns don't have plural forms. There is no such word as equipments. Don't say it. The next thing that's different about non-count nouns is they can't be used with plural verbs. So this informations are wrong is a wrong sentence, okay? You can't say that. You have information is a common noun that is non-count. And so if we want to talk about this idea, we have to say this information is wrong.
Or these pieces of information are wrong.
That's true.
Right.
The next thing that's different is that, okay, well, this is a little obvious. They're called non-count nouns. You can't count them. You can't say one homework. Homework is another very common non-count noun. You can't say 2 homeworks, 5 homeworks. You can't even say a homework, because a means sort of the same thing as 1, and that's counting. And then finally, non-count nouns can't be used with the words many or few. So if you want to talk about how much homework you have, you can say, I have a lot of homework. I have so much homework. I have a little homework, I have some homework, but not many homework or few homework. Now, we've seen what's different about non-count nouns. The really tricky part is to know which nouns are non-count, because it's not obvious. So I'm going to give you 3 tools that will help you figure out which nouns belong in this group. And Avi, if you could work on bringing up the next slide.
Okay.
We're going to see a picture of a dictionary entry. It's from a learner's dictionary. And if you look in a good learner's dictionary of English, you will find information about nouns that are non-count.
Okay,
So,
we've got the, what was up? Now let's get it up, pull it up again here. Give me just a second here. Okay, yeah, this slides up.
okay, so here is the entry for equipment in Merriam-Webster's Learner's Dictionary. This is our online dictionary. And right underneath the word equipment, and I've highlighted in red for you, it tells you non-count. Okay, so that's really easy. Look it up in a dictionary, and of course dictionaries don't have to be books anymore. You can find them on computers, you can download them onto your smartphones, so it's pretty easy to get to a dictionary. And now, Avi, if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about another way of learning which words are non-count. And that way has to do with non-count nouns tend to come in categories.
Okay, the slide is up.
Here's a list of some common and useful categories of non-count nouns. So the first one is liquids. You see water, coffee, even gasoline. Think of gasoline as it pours, it's liquid. Shampoo, anything that pours, really, we could say. And then sort of the opposite of liquids is solids. Ice, steel, concrete, things that are like hard. Okay. Then what I call tiny bits, things that come in little tiny particles or specks, like sugar, flour, salt. You can also think of this category as something that you could make a pile of. Then there's spreads, and these are things that you can spread on food, mostly on food actually, yeah. Maybe sunscreen, we could say, you could spread on your body. And it is a non-count noun. So the next one is weather, and you can see there a list of different kinds of weather, and these are all non-count nouns. And then finally, feelings. Okay, so this is a really good set of categories to keep in mind. However, there is an exception that we need to talk about. So Avi, I'm going to need your help here.
Okay.
So I want you to take the word coffee, and I want you to take the phrase 2 coffees and tell us a situation where you might use it. Give us an example.
Okay, well, let's say I invite you to a coffee shop, and we're sitting there, and the wait person comes over and says, what will you have? And I'd say, can we have 2 coffees, please?
Okay, exactly. Now, why? We've just gotten finished saying that coffee is a non-count noun, and here's Avi using it with the word 2 in plural. What's he doing? Well, when Avi says 2 coffees, what he really means is 2 cups of coffee, and cup is a container and it's countable. So once you're referring, even indirectly, to a container, now it can be count. So you can say 2 waters, 2 coffees. 2 shampoos would be a little bit different. That would mean like 2 times that you wash your hair. The other exception with non-count nouns is that if you're talking about different kinds of that noun, it can be count and it can be plural. So for example, Avi, I'm going to need your help again. Can you talk about, let's see, the word ketchup and make it plural, so we have ketchups, and put that in a sentence for us.
Okay. Let's say I go to the grocery store and I've got to buy a bottle of ketchup. And I go to the aisle and I'm trying to decide because there's so many different kinds, and I'm thinking to myself, look at all of these ketchups.
Okay, exactly.
Right?
All right. So Avi there is talking about different kinds of ketchup. He's also actually talking about bottles, but even if they didn't come in bottles, he's talking about different kinds. So maybe he wants to buy 2 of them and serve 2 ketchups at dinner. So if it's more than one kind of a non-count noun, it can be plural. And if it's containers of a non-count noun, it can be plural. So those are the exceptions. All right, now, Avi, if you can work on bring up the next slide.
Okay, we've got it ready. Give me just a second here. Okay, it's up.
I'm going to talk about one more way of predicting which nouns are non-count. And here what I'd like to suggest is that you memorize these words. These are among the most common non-count nouns. I've organized them into groups that seem to go together. And if you know these, you know a lot. You're going to do much better. So number 1, furniture, luggage, and equipment. Those are all things that, even though you might have separate pieces of them, so you might have a couch and a bed and a nightstand, we still talk about it as one singular thing. We say, my furniture is old. No S. Same thing with luggage and equipment. The things in item number 2, those are all kind of, they kind of go together as information, knowledge,
Ideas.
ideas, thank you. Number 3 is 2 words that have to do with money. Number 4 is words that have to do with getting dressed. Number 5 are words that have to do with school. Number 6, bread and pasta, 2 very common things to eat that are both non-count. And number 7 are things that belong to the fine arts, music, art. You could also put literature in this list.
And so if we say arts with an S at the end, we're talking collectively like different kinds of arts.
That's right. So a common expression, you might talk about the fine arts. And that means, just as you say, different kinds of artistic endeavors. Okay, now we're all set with the learning. Now we're going to do the practice. So, Avi, if you can bring up the next slide.
Okay.
And those of you who are watching, you should have a pen ready, or a pencil, and a piece of paper.
Okay.
Here's a quiz. And for this quiz, each item has 1 word underlined, and we want you to look at the sentence, and Avi's going to start reading them aloud.
Okay,
Just
good.
write down, is it count? You can write a C, or non-count. You can write NC. Go ahead, Avi.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get the slide up so everyone can see it. Let me give it one more click here. Okay, our quiz is up, and we start with the sentence, Georgette sleeps with 2 pillows. Is pillows count or non-count? Question 2. The furniture needs to be moved. Is furniture count or non-count? Third question. Our house is made of wood. Okay, Jen, you want to read the next few there?
4. I drink milk at breakfast. 5. She likes her coffee with 3 sugars. 6. There's going to be an exam tomorrow. 7. Your luggage has arrived.
Which is always good to hear if you're traveling.
Yes. And the last one, I'm looking for a gold necklace.
So is necklace count or non-count? So why don't you write down your answers there, and before we show you the answers, give you a few more seconds here. Okay, and so let me at least start the process of pulling up the answers here. Okay, we've got them. There you go. So as you can see on the screen there, we've got the answers. Pillows is a count, because you can say pillow or pillows with an S on the end, count now. Furniture, as Jane said, non-count. Wood, non-count. Milk, non-count. Sugars, count, because with the S on the end.
Because it's packets of sugar.
Packets of sugar, right? You're talking about containers, little
Or
packets.
teaspoons of sugar.
And you want to read the answers to the next reader?
Sure. Exam is count. It's just a regular noun. Luggage, as we said, is non-count, even though you might have many pieces. We just call it luggage. And necklace is a regular count noun.
All right. And we've got some noise in the background there. But, okay, well, so now, audience, how did you do? Did you understand the difference between count and non-count? And you could probably find more about this on the web, right? If people want to know more about count.
If you go to learnersdictionary.com into the Ask the Editor section, there is a post about count and non-count nouns where people can get more information.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Jane. Jane Mars is the editor of the Ask the Editor column at learnersdictionary.com. She joined us from Merriam-Webster in Springfield, Massachusetts. That's all for now. You can read, listen, and learn with our programs and activities at any time at learningenglish.voanews.com and at the VOA Learning English channel on YouTube. I'm Avi Arditi in Washington. Thanks for joining us.